This is the fourth video in the series for the electrical upgrade on my Grand Design Reflection 303 RLS. Subscribe to my channel and you'll have access to links to all of my videos. In today's video, we're going to discuss the installation of my Renogy 60 amp DC to DC charger. I'm going to break this video down into two sections, the tow vehicle section and the trailer section. Let's start with the tow vehicle. We're going to try and figure out a place to mount our solenoid. You can see that's the battery. There's a second battery on the passenger side, and this is a dual alternator system, so we're going to have plenty of power. These are the two connectors for the upfitter switches in my Ram. I will use this wire, which comes from pin number 2 on the light gray connector, which is the upfitter switch number 6. So you can see I'm already using pin number 4 on this one, which is just a pass-through, and pin number 1 on the dark gray. To find a place to mount this solenoid, a little bit difficult because everything under this hood is incredibly tight. So what I did is made a bracket, actually tack welded it to this brace, and mounted the solenoid on the bottom side. So I can come from my positive terminal right to here, and then out of this terminal, and I'll route it back to the back of the truck. The solenoid installation is pretty straightforward when using the upfitter switches. All I have to do is attach one of my 4-gauge cables from the battery to the solenoid. On the other side, it'll go from the solenoid back to the back of my truck, and then the upfitter switch goes to energize the solenoid, and the other terminal goes to ground. This is the finished product under the hood. You can see I have a 80 amp terminal fuse. Just finished installing my terminal caps. Got everything tied up. I'll take a walk back here. So that's just to give you an idea inside my Ram box. Coming up through the floor. And we go out through the Ram box and into the bed, where I used grommets to protect the wire. And that's our Anderson style connector. The wiring inside the trailer gets a little bit more complicated. We'll start by going over the different components. These components we covered in previous videos. This is my 60 amp DC to DC charger, which is located here in the trailer. These are ATC fuses, which are located here. This is my 12 volt relay, which is located here. That's the solenoid that we just saw inside the truck, located here. And that's our 7-pin connector located here on the back of the truck. There are three things that I want to accomplish with this install. I want to be able to control the charger from inside the truck, in other words, turn it on and off, and also reduce the output. And then I want to get the full 12 volts from my running lights. This is the wiring diagram for the full install of this DC to DC charger. Let's walk through a few different scenarios. When the 7-pin connector is connected to the tow vehicle, a 12 volt supply coming from that 7-pin connector goes to the D+ line. With auxiliary switch number 6 turned off, there is no 12 volt supply to the DC to DC charger, so it remains off at this time. When we turn the auxiliary switch on, the 12 volt supply is sent to the DC to DC charger, which then begins charging the battery at the full 60 amps. When our auxiliary switch is turned off, but our headlights are turned on, the relay is energized and sends the 12 volts from the 7-pin connector through to our running lights and our tail lights. By powering the lights on the trailer from the auxiliary 12 volt supply at that 7-pin connector, I get away from the pulse width modulated signal that my RAM puts out to the tail lights. This will help make sure that my backup camera continues to work properly. If we turn auxiliary switch number 6 on while our headlights are on, we continue to send that 12 volts from the 7-pin connector to our tail lights, but we also send 12 volts to the LC signal on the DC to DC charger, which cuts the amperage in half. All right, so let me try and explain all of this stuff. So basically what I did, and let me find a pointer here, is I tapped into this green wire, which is the power to the running lights on the trailer. So I cut that wire and ran it to this terminal block. Out of the terminal block, that is actually the trigger for this relay. So when the lights are on, this relay energizes. And then this brown wire is the ground wire coming out of the relay. So the green wire, so this is the switch side of the relay, this back green wire and this orange wire. So power to the relay comes from my 7-pin connector, 12 volt auxiliary power, which comes in on this red and white wire. So I'm powering, and I'm actually going through a 30 amp circuit breaker. It's an auto resetting circuit breaker that was originally over here. See if I can figure out where I'm pointing to. Originally here. So that auxiliary power used to come in here, went through 30 amp circuit breaker to charge the battery. So this circuit over here was originally used for the solar power coming in, and it had a 50 amp resettable circuit breaker. So I just moved that over to this empty spot right here. So if one of my other circuit breakers happens to go bad, I've got a replacement. So again, we have 12 volt power coming in, this white and red wire going through a 30 amp circuit breaker. And then I'm coming up here to, these are two fuses. Let me just pop one open to show you. So this side is a 10 amp fuse, and this one over here is a 15 amp fuse. So again, we're coming in from our 12 volt auxiliary power up this orange wire through 15 amp fuse to the switched side of this relay. So when I turn my lights on, I've got my 12 volt power
actuating the relay, coming through, so my power's coming through this orange wire, back out this green wire, down, so this green wire over here feeds the running lights on my trailer. Now, I also wanted my DC to DC charger to kick down from 60 amps to 30 amps whenever I have my headlights on. So I also tied this brown wire here to the circuit coming from the relay that turns my lights on. So when my lights are on, I'm sending 12 volts back to my current limiting terminal on my DC to DC charger. Okay, the other wire coming from this fuse, we follow it down, it's this yellow wire. It's the D plus that actuates my DC to DC charger. One of the questions I would ask if I saw this is, why add the terminal block when essentially all I'm doing is connecting wires to that relay? So the reason is, I don't necessarily trust, this is a mechanical relay, it's not a solid state relay. I couldn't find one locally and didn't really want to wait for Amazon. So if I'm going down the road in the middle of the night and for some reason that relay fails, that means the clearance lights and tail lights on my trailer turn off. So by adding this terminal block, all I have to do is switch this wire, which feeds the tail lights and running lights to my trailer, over to this terminal. So essentially disconnect this one, put this wire over here, and now I've got the original circuit back. So that would take me all of about 2 minutes. Simple to do and gets me out of a bind. Did I need it? Probably not, but that's just kind of the way I am.
Okay, now it's time for the test. Renogy DC to DC charger. So right now I have everything turned off. You can see my battery monitor shows I'm at 82%, pulling a little over an amp. So I've got the truck running. So a couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, my 7-pin connector is the trigger for this charger. So I have to have it plugged in. So with my 7-pin connector plugged in, I'm going to plug in my little extension here. Alright, so we're plugged into the truck. So right now there is nothing coming out of this cable. So I'm going to plug it into the trailer. Alright, so we're plugged into the trailer, plugged into the truck. If I come over here to my DC to DC charger, you can see there's no green light on. So again, nothing coming through. Let's jump up in the truck here. So the first thing I'm going to do is set this on high idle. So for Ram owners, it's a pretty simple thing to do. All you do is turn on the cruise control and hit set, and you'll see that it goes up to about 1100 RPMs. Then all I have to do is hit the resume, and it goes up incrementally. I'm gonna leave it right there. All right. So my DC to DC charger is connected to auxiliary switch number 6. So when I turn that on, you can see the light comes on. And we'll go out here. Alright, so we'll check our DC to DC charger. Now we have the green light on, which means it's charging. Let's come back around, take a look at our battery monitor. And it shows 58.1 amps. So we figure we're drawing about not quite an amp, so we are really close to the 60 amp mark. All right, I'm gonna leave this run a little bit, but first let me show you when I turn my lights on. That light's on. We still have our green light on the charger, but what we should have done is cut the charging amperage in half, so it should be around 30. And you can see we're showing 28.9. So that part works. So whenever I have my headlights on and I'm going down the road with the running lights on the trailer, it's using that current limiting to drop that current down to about half. Alright, I'm gonna come back around, turn the lights off, and we're back up to 58 amps. I'm going to let this thing run for a little bit and get an idea how long it takes to charge. This is going to be a little bit loud, but while this thing is charging at its full potential, I just want to measure the voltage drop from the solenoid back to my connection inside the trailer. So at the output of my solenoid, going to the negative battery terminal, you can see that I have 14.13 volts. So I want to measure this where it's coming into my DC to DC charger. So you can see that I'm reading about, say, 12.3 volts. So there is a fairly significant voltage drop. I'll actually do the calculations and see how much that is. But I did expect that because I'm running 4-gauge welding cable, and I probably have 35 feet from where it leaves that solenoid to where it comes into here. So now I'm going to measure the output voltage of this DC to DC charger. So running at 60 amps, we're at 13.95. I have the dip switch settings right now set to lithium mode at 14.4 volts. We're about a little over 20 minutes in at this point. You can see we're still charging at 57 amps and our battery's to 92%. So I'm gonna come back right at the 30-minute mark and we'll see how it does. So we're right at the 30-minute mark. You can see that we're still charging 56.8 amps and my battery's up to 96%. So let's come around. I want to check temperatures one last time. So the unit itself running at 107 degrees. The wire coming in is right at about 100. It's definitely warm, but not at all hot. The wires on the camper side seem to be running a little bit hotter, but I think a part of that is we're down here where we're catching some of the heat coming out of the vents on this side. So overall, I'm very happy with the temperatures. Nothing there that concerns me. So let's just check, make sure that we don't have any significant heat in my connectors. And we'll go back. Now this is inside the RAM box, which is a little bit warm already anyway. So you can see the wire shows 113, but the box itself is 109. So again, nothing there that concerns me temperature wise. And warm, but definitely not hot. All right, overall, I think it was a successful test. In future videos, I'll talk about my converter upgrade, changes that I made to the solar controller, and I'll also go into wiring sizes and fuses that I selected for this project. Again, thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of it.